My exclusive guest today from Istanbul is Nigar Goksel, the head of the ICG Turkey project. Ms. Goksel is based in Turkey. She's supervising the work of the Office of International Crisis Group in Turkey. Nigar, thanks for this opportunity. My first question is about the role of Turkey in the war in Nagorno-Karabakh. We saw that President Erdogan didn't hesitate at all to actively support Azerbaijan in the war with Armenia by providing attacking drones, military hardware, and Turkey, besides that, supplied not only military hardware, but also manpower in the form of mercenaries. Turkish officers were helping Azerbaijani army to conduct the war. What was at stake for Turkey? Why Erdogan encouraged the war instead of encouraging the peaceful solution? Was there any political, domestic consideration for Erdogan in this war in Nagorno-Karabakh?
And for one, I do need to clarify that I've been following this issue very much in a personal capacity as well. We haven't been doing crisis group research specifically, like we haven't published a report on this that I was involved in. So I'm just really speaking, and some of what I say will be based on my conversations in the past and currently that are not necessarily crisis group oriented. You're right. I think that there was a sense of Turkey having been weak in the early 1990s. When I actually went to Baku last April, and people were saying, back when we were losing those territories, we asked Turkey for a helicopter, and they couldn't even send that. There was a lot of outcry in Turkey to help Azerbaijan in the public, but Turkey was so weak, Ankara had to, succumb to the pressure from the West not to get involved, not to help us. And so among some people, I think it was really sort of a demonstration that Turkey is no longer, Turkey is no longer in a position to sort of bow down to the pressures of Western powers, and also this general. It also reflected a frustration with the international community that things don't move forward. That there was, all the efforts in diplomacy. It hadn't worked in so long, and it was not going to work. I think that conviction was very strong in Turkey that the negotiation table wasn't going to deliver results. So something else had to happen, and if not with Turkey's help, then this would happen with somebody else's help, could be Russia's. So I think there were geostrategic considerations. There were clearly some public opinion considerations as well. By and large, it was very popular in Turkey, I think with a very small exception of a minority. There were very little negative comments in Turkey about the support extended to Azerbaijan. Perhaps I'll leave it at that.
Now, when the war is over, Turkish leader is talking about normalizing relations with Yerevan. Let me quote one of the comments of President Erdogan. He said, "There is a need for new and constructive approaches in our region. Although there are differences of opinion and expectations, it will be responsible course of action to make a sincere effort to develop good neighborly relations based on trust, including respect for each other's territorial integrity and sovereignty." I'm just quoting Erdogan. How serious is Turkish president? Do you believe that he wants to start dialogue with Armenia?
I believe there is definitely interest. Otherwise, you wouldn't have had these comments, both from the president himself at the highest level, but also from the foreign minister. Clearly, there is interest, but I think it's different. It's different from 2009 in various reasons, and that I don't think they see it as one big step where everything happens at once, but like a sort of a gradual, incremental process that they would like to begin. I really don't speak on behalf of Ankara, but I think instead of, like, Azerbaijan clearly will be a factor, as will Russia, and so having them on board, at least not as spoilers, is important for Ankara, it seems. And so I think they envision a sort of fluid, because there's so many variables, something that evolves slowly, as opposed to a process like 2009 that was sort of built in stone. If this happens, then that happens. Sort of a more clear-cut parameters. I think this time the parameters are a little bit looser. There's an interest, but it's sort of like a let's work on this together slowly and see where it goes approach, in my view.
And as we know, the possible rapprochement between Turkey and Armenia will not be welcomed in Baku. As you may remember from the past, one of the major attempts to bring Armenia and Turkey closer angered Baku. In 2009, as you said, when Armenia and Turkey signed protocols in Zurich, we heard lots of criticism from Baku. Azerbaijan would like to precondition any such attempt, the return of territories in and around Nagorno-Karabakh. And in fact, Nagorno-Karabakh was one of the major causes, if not the major cause, of the collapse of Zurich protocols. Don't you think that another attempt of rapprochement could fail because of Baku's objections? There was a saying that the Turkish policy towards Armenia is being decided in Baku, not in Ankara. Do you agree with it?
I mean, I don't agree that Turkish policy towards Armenia is made in Baku, but I think Azerbaijan is a factor, and it's going to be a factor. And when you say, like, does that mean it will fail? It very well could fail. Frankly, I hope it doesn't fail. I would like to be optimistic, but I also have a certain cynicism as well. I think it's healthy that since Azerbaijan is a factor in that Ankara will be considering, I think it's healthy that this is known and this is being pronounced more clearly. I think the learned lesson from 2009 was that it's really important not to keep Azerbaijan in the dark. If we recall what happened in 2009, Azerbaijan felt bypassed and ended up both stirring up domestic opposition against the government, the nationalists, and also seemed to be prone to lean towards Russia as a sort of reaction, let's say. And I think Turkey really would like to make sure this doesn't happen. So let's sort of make sure Baku is on board. I don't think it's called a precondition, and I think that it's sort of precisely not called a precondition. Make sure not to irritate Russia or Azerbaijan, but keep them on board and find ways to make them also incentivize them. So, because if neither one of them want to derail a Turkey-Armenia normalization, they both have the capacity to. So, I think this regional integration framework is one way to make it a win-win for everybody. And so Russia has no reason. Well, Russia has seen interest for itself in a process of normalization, as hopefully will Azerbaijan. And I think Ankara will work on Azerbaijan because there's less distrust now compared to 2009. I think Ankara, at least some people in Ankara, think that they will be able to, together with Azerbaijan, try to see the benefits of Turkey-Armenia normalization. And in fact, there have been people in Baku who have said it might not be that bad a thing. In fact, President Aliyev said it himself. That was some months ago, so I don't know whether that same sentiment still continues. But there may be a way that Turkey can work on softening the edges of Azerbaijan at the same time, as opposed to saying we're going to do this despite Azerbaijan's reaction. Sort of say we're going to try to make it all move together.
And I think now some other analysts discussed this topic. They said that now Turkey is in a better position to influence Baku's policy towards this rapprochement because Turkey helped enormously Azerbaijan in this war with Armenia. So is that the case? Do you think that that's the case?
I think in many ways, yes, they have closed ranks. I think Azerbaijan, I think there's less distrust. I think in some ways Turkey has more leverage than it used to. Mm-hmm. But I also think that Turkey is going to be sensitive about not. I'm sorry about this, my cats.
And one other question about Russia's mediation proposals. I mean, they are ready. They said that we're ready to actively support this possible dialogue between Ankara and Yerevan. Do you believe that this is Russia is really sincerely wants to become like middleman of these talks? What's your take on that?
I mean, I have no way to know what Russia's intentions are, but I can say what I understand Ankara's approach to this as being, which is that if Russia wants to be involved, then Russia needs to be involved, because anything that appears to be that Russia thinks may be undermining its influence or working against its interests is bound to fail under the current situation. So my understanding is that trying to find a way for this to be all in Moscow's interest as well is important for Ankara.
And now we can see that Russia was trying to be impartial during the war, and it even cooperated with Turkey and never criticized Ankara during the war. Some Armenians believe that there was a Russian-Turkish deal before the war has started even. And even though Russia and Turkey are adversaries in some areas, like in Syria or in Libya, they are cooperating in other areas like economy, energy, trade. They have huge trade volume. In fact, Russia is the second trading partner for Turkey after Germany. Both countries have more common mutual interests than differences. Are they rivals in South Caucasus, or two powerful players that want to share influence in the region? What's your opinion?
I think there's a realism in Ankara when it comes to Russia, and that realism has evolved with their sort of joint existence in a number of conflict theaters. So Syria probably is the most important one, where of course they support opposing sides of the conflict, but yet they find a way to accommodate each other and at least, in some cases, prevent or mitigate some escalations that would otherwise be taking place. And Libya was another sphere where clearly they were on different sides of the conflict, yet they managed to some degree respect each other's interests in these places. And I think in the Caucasus as well, of course there's a competition there between Turkey and Russia, but there's also an understanding that the other one's going to be there as well. And so, there's no point in trying to remain, from Ankara's perspective at least, I think that there's an awareness that that Turkey can't counterbalance Russia by itself or confront Russia and get anywhere in that way. And clearly the West is more absent than ever. So instead trying to find win-win formulas where both of them can derive some more influence or more interest in economic interests and whatnot is Turkey's. It seems to be what Turkey is doing. But are they in competition? Yeah, of course they are. But one that I think is accommodating the other.
Do you think that with this war, after this war, Turkey significantly strengthened its influence in the region?
Probably it did. Maybe not as much as Russia. Ultimately, maybe they both did, but.
Would you please elaborate a little bit on Russia's, as you just suggested, that not as much as Russia strengthened its position. Would you tell a little bit more about that? Do you believe that Russia gained a lot after this war?
Well, I mean, I think Russia it got troops on the ground. That's one thing. In Nagorno-Karabakh, I think that's something that for many years was seen as a sort of a game changer. That happened, and also I don't know Armenia very well, but it seems like this credentials of the protector of Armenia, that Russia goes where Armenia will be under threat. That conviction may have increased, which may make it stronger, sort of unchallengeable position in at least parts of Armenia.
And we have seen the administration of President Biden recognize the Armenian genocide, ignoring the threats from Ankara to cut ties with U.S., to stop cooperation with the U.S., and even threatening to close down Incirlik military base. Biden showed that he will not hesitate to act, and during the war, he issued statements when he was a candidate of the president, saying that he would have done everything to stop the war. Do you think that the election of Biden changed the situation, and that Turkey would rather hesitate to trigger another warlike situation in and around Nagorno-Karabakh or in Armenia?
I don't think Turkey has any interest in triggering war. I think the main interest was the regions around Nagorno-Karabakh from a Turkish perspective, and I think I think that's where it stops. That's what I believe. Unless of course there's something changes, some other regional dynamic plays in. I don't see there to be any interest in Ankara for further war. I also don't think Biden's election changes much of that. I think Biden's election, of course, has played a role in Turkey-U.S. relations, and so far, it's hard to see that there's much more cooperation than previously between Turkey and the U.S. But I don't think it's really, I don't think the leverage of the U.S. in the Caucasus has changed significantly, but that's just me looking from Turkey, so you may know better.
Yeah. And some analysts believe that the agreement signed by the parties has nothing to end hostility between Azerbaijan and Armenia. The conflict could have another round, and as Thomas Deval says, this is much more a deal than is a peace. The new war in the region that will be waged against Armenia could risk, some believe, wider war between Russia and Turkey. Do you believe that this is a possibility, or this is just exaggeration? And please also comment on the deal signed between Azerbaijan, Russia, and Armenia. How do you agree with Tom Deval when he says that it's a rather deal than a peace agreement?
Well, clearly it's not a peace agreement, and I do see a contradiction in Ankara's both. These are narratives in that sometimes the rhetoric is that the war is finished, like Nagorno-Karabakh is solved, and then sometimes it clearly is implied that Azerbaijan may still need Turkey's help at the negotiation table. So I think that's there's some contradictions in the Turkish rhetoric sometimes about that. I really don't think Russia and Turkey would come in a sort of face-to-face confrontation, a military confrontation, and I don't think it will be an all-out war at this point. I don't know. I don't study Nagorno-Karabakh conflict, but I don't think Turkey is expecting or is going to position itself in such a way as to be in a military confrontation with Russia. I think there's a lot of caution about that, and there's a lot of communication between Ankara and Moscow, such that neither one of them, I think, would see it in their interest to be. Tom Dewal is a very good friend, and I like him a lot. So I'm not arguing against him. I'm just saying I don't see in Ankara that kind of an expectation, let's say.
Yeah. Interesting. Now, my question is about the opening the borders with Armenia. How far we are from that perspective? Do you believe that the Turkish president is keen to see the borders open between Armenia and Turkey?
It's hard for me to get into the mind of the Turkish president. I'm really only going by his words that you also read, as well as maybe some conversations with other people in Ankara. I think there's definitely an interest in having that region stable and and routes open for communications and transport, and sort of in time, everybody mellowing a little bit, and this hostilities passing, not necessarily one day with the ceremony, but slowly with interaction and with more dialogue, both by also people just going about daily business, so trade and visits and whatnot. I think the vision is that. The vision is an open region that's stable, that slowly, gradually gets to understand each other better, as opposed to one day signing a paper and having, expecting everybody to be on the same page. So the vision, I think, is there. I think how to get there may be more unclear. I think there's too many variables and things that are being that Turkey will be cautious about. Turkey really, as far as I understand, really does not want this to turn into a West Russia fault line either. So that so that the Western, they would like more Western actors to be involved, but not in a way such as to try to weaken Russia's role. So that if the West comes in, sort of seeing Turkey-Armenia normalization as a way to lessen Russia's grip, then that's only going to ignite a Russian sort of spoiler role. So I think Ankara is going to be very cautious about that, and then there'll be other cautions like that. But the vision, I think, yes, is there. I mean, the eventual wish for open borders and routes and eventually hearts and minds as well. But maybe that might come later. I think he does want that.
And now, Nigar, I have a question about our Turkish and Armenian people in general. We remember that when, after assassination of Hrant Dink, there was some really, I should say, some good feelings, among Armenians that Turkish society is changing itself. They were really very sorry about this assassination, and we remembered, demonstrations, the streets of Istanbul full of people who were, condemning this attack, and there was a chance at that time. We believed that there was a chance for really people-to-people rapprochement. But it's not the case now after this war. What's your feeling? How far apart these two people are now?
It's a good question, and I wish I had some time to think before answering. I mean, in general, this is not just an Armenia issue. In general, civil society has gotten much weaker in Turkey, and this whole sort of vision of integrating with the EU has been lost. And there are many reasons for that. I don't think one can point to one particular address as to why. There's a sense of siege that's become very widespread in Turkish society, a sense that there's an effort to weaken Turkey, to undermine it, to discredit it, to make it look bad in the world, and the mobilization against that has really swept a lot of society into that kind of a mind frame. And so instead of looking critically at Turkey, at its politics, at its history, there's much more of a defensive mood. Of course, that there are certain segments of civil society that were most active in building bridges with Armenia. Those individuals still exist and they still feel the same way, but they have much less of a voice in the media. I think they're much less able to be active in society. And frankly, maybe we do need to, they were very important, but maybe we need to find ways to reach wider segments of society as opposed to only have the people who agree with each other meeting together. I think that might have been one of the problems in the past, where we had liberal Turkish intellectuals meeting with Armenian counterparts. Well, they already are more or less on the same page, so it might have felt good, but it might have been less unpleasant than meeting nationalists. But I think it also had a limited effect in sort of getting into the arteries of society. So I may have said a lot of different things in
very interesting. Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, we should try to get together nationalists on both sides. So Nigar, thank you so much. It was really great interview, and thank you. And I think
Thank you.
I will again bother you to find out
I'll-
more about what's happening in
Thanks. I
with
look
these two
forward to it.
countries. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thanks, Larry. Bye-bye. Have a good day.
Bye. Bye. You too. Bye.